Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Aditya here. In our previous session, we have discussed about how to access AWS console, not console, AWS services, right? And the different ways of accessing AWS services. Like we can use AWS Management Console, we can use AWS CLI, we can use AWS SDK, right? In this session, we will do a deep dive hands-on on AWS CLI. So how to set up AWS CLI on different OSs like Windows, Mac, and Linux. So I'm going to install in Windows and show you, and I will give you the information how to do in Mac OS and Linux box also. And after that, we will see how to use Cloud Shell, which was alternative to these terminals, right? So you can open a terminal in AWS console itself. So I will show you. So instead of setting up all these things in your local system, you can use AWS Cloud Shell, which was provided by the AWS to you on the fly. So, and what was the advantage of using Cloud Shell? And so, what was the advantages of using Cloud Shell? Also, we will discuss. Okay. So now I'm going to download AWS CLI for my Windows laptop. AWS CLI for Windows, and yeah. So here you have installing AWS CLI version on Windows and Linux, or you can go to the actual AWS documentation. Here you have Windows, right? Click on it and always look for CLI 2 because version 1 is outdated. Not outdated, there are few upgrades in version 2, so better we will use version 2. So go to version 2. Yeah. So this is all about version 2 and okay. So here we need to install AWS CLI version 2. So here if you see, right, getting started with AWS CLI, AWS CLI version 2. So search for results with AWS CLI version 2 and open it. Yeah. So installing or updating the latest version for AWS CLI. If you click here, it will open this page. And if you scroll down, AWS CLI updated instructions for different OS. You have Linux, Mac, and Windows. So I'm going to open the Windows here. So for that, you have to uh, install or download this package. The first step, right? You have to install this MSA installer. So click on this link, it will automatically download that installer for you. So let it install. So even though if you want to update also, you have to again download the same installer and reinstall it. And if you are installing for the first time, just click this link. It will download that MSA installer and use that MSA installer to install AWS CLI in your Windows system. Alternatively, you can execute this command also, which will again execute that MSA, download that MSA and execute it. But yeah, we can directly execute in this Windows, right? So that is the first step. And the second step, you need to check the version. So we will complete the first step. So our MSA was installed. I'm opening this MSA, and yeah, this is welcoming us. So welcome to the AWS Command Line Interface V2 setup wizard, right? And click on please wait while the setup wizard prepares guide you through installation. Okay, yeah. So it took some seconds to open this page and click on next. And here you will get end user license agreement. You just read the license agreement and accept the terms. And after that, click on next. And yeah, so wait to install and all. So next and click on install. So if you have admin privileges, you can able to install. And if you are using some system which was controlled by admin, so you can go to the admin to install this package to you. Okay, so the setup is getting installed now. We will wait for some time. So the install was going on. Currently that green line is progressing. I hope the install will complete it within a few minutes. Now it's validating that install, and yeah, the install was completed. No. The install is still going. It is updating some registration, removing some existing files. Since I have this installation, I have this installed earlier, the AWS CLI, so it is trying to remove the existing files and update the new files to it. So it's been a long time I have installed it. So currently it is upgrading the existing one. But in your case, if you are installing for the first time, you can. I don't think this step will come to you because since you are installing it for the first time, it will install it instead of removing anything. Yeah, so it's copying new file and again it's updating some component registration. Yeah, it is taking a couple of minutes. It took 5 minutes for me. I don't know whether it's network issue or with the installation itself is taking this much time. I don't know. So we'll wait for some time. Yeah, the installation was completed. I can click on finish now. Done, right? That is the first step. You have to install either by clicking directly this link or by executing these two commands. And next, to confirm the installation, we have to open the start menu and execute this command. And if you get some output like this, then you are good to go. So we'll do that. So first we will copy this AWS hyphen hyphen version from here and open CMD, control CMD, and yeah, we have opened the command prompt, right, and paste that, and now we'll try to execute this, executing, and you can able to see there, and you can able to see, right, the AWS CLI version is 2.27 and the Python version is 3.13 and Windows 11 is showing all the information. So we are good to go here. So you have AWS CLI installed in your system. So similarly, you can install the AWS CLI if you are using Mac OS or Linux. So you can follow these instructions, right? If it is Linux, you have to do these things. You have to follow these instructions based on your configurations. Okay, if it is a Mac OS also, you have to install based on this page. So you have GUI installer, command line installer. So you can follow these steps to install your AWS. So at the end, you have to execute this command, and and so at the end, you are able to install. So at the end, you are able to execute this version command, and once you execute this version command, you have to get this kind of result. Then only we can say your AWS CLI was installed properly. Even it's for Linux, it's for Windows, or it's for Mac OS. Okay, so that is how you can install your AWS CLI in different ecosystems. So I have shown you how to install in Windows because I am using a Windows machine. But if you are using a different machine, you can follow along these guides so that you can able to install that AWS CLI in your local system. Okay, that's it. So our CLI was installed. Now, do you think we can, since CLI was installed, do you think we can directly access our AWS account or AWS services from the CLI? The answer is no, because if I type AWS here, it is showing some options. So if I try to add AWS list, AWS IAM list hyphen users, we'll see what was the result. So it will say invalid client token because we haven't configured the credentials to the CLA. So as we discussed in the previous session, in order to access AWS resources or AWS account or services, first you need to create credentials, right? Credentials like you need to give username and password and store those username and password for the CLA. So with respect to CLI, we call those username and passwords as access keys. Okay, this is the terms of AWS. If you are using SDK or if you are using CLI, you have to use access key. But for management console, you can use username and password. That thing we have already know. But access key is the new thing we have discussed in the earlier. Now we will see in hands-on how we can use the access keys. Okay, so your AWS CLI is set up now, and what you have to do is you have to configure those access key and secret keys here so that you can able to access your AWS account. Okay, so first we have to create those access key and secret keys. For that, go to your AWS console and uh, go to IAM section. Okay, so in the IAM, we will select one user. So I logged in with root user. We will select one user and we'll create access keys to that user. And by using that user, we will try to access the AWS. Okay. So we have two users currently, Aditya and Kalyani. And Aditya is having admin access. Even Kalyani also having admin access. So we'll try to uh, edit the Aditya user. And you can able to see the permissions. He is having administration permissions. And for this users, for this user, in order to create access and secret keys, you have to go to the security credential tab. And here you have console sign in link has been created for him, and multi-factor authentication we haven't enabled for this IAM user Aditya. And yeah, so this is what we're interested in. We need to create access keys. Why to create access keys? You have to use access keys to send programmatic calls to AWS from AWS CLI or PowerShell. We will discuss about PowerShell in the upcoming slides, and AWS C. We will discuss about the PowerShell also in some time, and also AWS CLI or direct AWS API calls. So for CLI or SDKs, you have to use these access keys. So these access keys act as password, right? Username and password to your AWS account. Okay. So for this user, I'm going to create an access key. And once I click on that access key, this page got open, right? Create access key page, and here you will have some best practices and alternatives also the AWS will suggest. So first we'll try to create an access key for command line interface. So our use case is command line interface. We want to access this AWS account through Aditya user using command line interface. So I'm selecting this command line interface as my option, and you have multiple options also. You can use access keys to do this local code to access the AWS environment, and some other things, third party services running outside AWS other. So you have different use cases. So our use case, we want to use these access keys to access AWS resources using command line interface. So that's the reason we are using CLI. And if you scroll down, there are alternative recommendations also instead of using CLI. Like you can use AWS Cloud Shell, which is a browser-based CLI. So it's like you can in the browser itself you can open and command prompt kind of environment where you can run commands. Or otherwise you can try out this AWS CLI v2 and enable authentication through an user IAM identity center, which is a complex thing. We will discuss it later. As of now, we can ignore that. Okay, and we just select the our use case, that is command line interface, and we have to confirm that. So I understand above recommendations. I want to proceed to create an access key. So now we are creating an access key. For that, click on this next button, and we can give some description, tag value, but it's fine. It's an optional thing. So click on create access key. So yeah, so your access key got created for this user. And also you have some best practices listed here. Never store your access key in plain text in a code repository or in code. Disable or delete access key when no longer needed. Enable least privilege permissions. Rotate access keys regularly. So these are like the best recommendations as we discussed in the previous sessions, right? You have to rotate it. If you don't need it, we have to remove. When you are giving some privileges to an user, follow least privilege principle. Yeah, I am not going to discuss about those things again. And yeah, you have to follow those best practices to keep your account secured. So you have an access key, you have a security key, you have a secret access key. By using this access key and secret access key, we can configure now our AWS CLI. So for that, go to AWS CLI, and here type first I will clear this. Yeah, Here first we need to configure. So for configuring you have to use AWS configure. If you click on AWS configure, it will ask AWS access key. So you can get that AWS access key from here. So copy it and go back and paste it. Enter. And you have to give AWS secret access key. That is like your password. So just copy your secret access key and go back and paste it here. And click on enter. And usually it will select the default region. It's fine. Let it be the default region itself and enter. And if you want the default output format, you can define the format whether you want in CSV or JSON. I am good with JSON, that is the default value. So I'm clicking enter, and now the setup was completed. So you have given your access key and secret key, and 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 you are able to access your AWS account through AWS CLI because you have already configured credentials. Now if I try AWS list, sorry, AWS IAM. So this is AWS, so that we can say command prompt we are executing AWS commands, and IAM is an API, and inside that API you can have multiple actions. For example, list users. So this will list the users within the account, right? And if the user having the list users access, then you can able to list that user. So click on enter, and yeah, right, you have two users here. One is Aditya. This is this is his user ID and the creation date and when he used the password last time. So there is another user Kalyani also, right? So you have two users. And if I go back to the console and go to the users section, right, here also we are calling that list user API only, but through console, right? This is UI, that is terminal, that is the difference. So if you see here, you have two users, Aditya, Kalyani. And if you see in the AWS CLI also, like AWS CLI also, right? Here also we have two users. So different ways of showing the same output, right? There you are accessing through UI, here you are accessing through CLI. So that's the difference. Now we will do a simple experiment. First we'll go to the first we'll edit the access of Aditya. So currently Aditya is having administrator access. Right, we'll do one thing. We'll try to remove this administrator access for Aditya. So click on this remove button. Okay, so I removed the administrator access for Aditya and I'm going back to the users. And what I will do is I will do a refresh here. So yeah, so since we are logged in with global user, we can able to see these users. Now we'll try to log in with Aditya and see whether Aditya was able to access this page. Okay, so I'm going to log in. AWS console, sign in. Oh, since we have already signed in with root user, we need to sign out. Signed out. Now we are going to sign in with Aditya. We have to provide the password. So for that you need account ID. Okay. Since we are logged in with the root user, that is Kalyani, the root user. So that's the thing, we can able to still see the users. So we'll go to Aditya's page. Okay. We'll go to Aditya, go to security credentials. Here you can see the console sign in link for Aditya user. So I am just copying this link and we will log in with this user instead of that. So yeah, you have to give the IAM username. So what was the IAM username? Yeah, that is simple, Aditya only. Aditya. My IAM username is Aditya and you have to remember his password. So the IAM user password and sign in. So now you signed in with the user Aditya. Okay, and go back to the US East one. Yeah, any reason is fine. Go back to the US East one and now go to IAM page. and go to users. You can see access denied for Aditya. And I'm going back to the root user. Yeah, access denied. And since I am opening the root user and also the current user in the same browser, it is getting signed. But fine, right? The user cannot able to access the users. Similarly, if I go to the console now and execute the same command, the command which we executed earlier, and you can see we don't have any response because access denied, because you don't have any identity based policy to list user, because we have removed the Aditya from the uh, administrator privileges. That's the reason you cannot be able to list users. So that's the reason. So we'll go back to the root user and again we'll try to we go back to the root user and again we will add Alcha back to the this Alcha back to the administrator privileges. Okay. So IAM, we have to navigate to users. In the users, click on Aditya, and in the permissions we removed, right? So you have to attach a permission. So add permission. So earlier Aditya is belongs to developers group, so I'm adding him into developer groups. Add permissions. That's it. Now he got the administrator access. Now we'll again try to log in with Aditya's link. For that you have to copy this console sign in for Aditya and go back and enter here. You have to give IAM username, that is Aditya, and password, and click on sign in. Once you can able to sign in with the username Aditya, right? Try to access IAM now, because now he is because now he is having administrator access. He can able to see the users. Look, now Aditya also able to see the users. Similarly, now if I try to execute the same command, now we will get a response because Aditya is now having access to IAM because he is having administrator privileges. Okay. So based on the privileges, you can able to access through console and through CLI. So both are same but different way of accessing the same AWS service. Now, like this you can use AWS CLI commands to different tasks in AWS. If you prefer CLI, you can use CLI. If you prefer console, you can go to console and do. But if you want to automate, then CLI is the better choice than console. Okay. So now you have already seen how to use AWS CLI, how to install it for different machines, and how to access AWS resources through using AWS CLI. So if you want to access more complex AWS resources, I will discuss them in the future sessions. But for introduction, this is fine. This is how you can set up and use AWS CLI. And if you want to learn more, you can go to AWS documentations and see what are the different AWS CLI commands to access S3 buckets, to invoke an EC2 instance, or to hit an EC2 instance or list a EC2 instance. So all this information available in the AWS documentation. Anyway, we are going to cover in the future sessions, but if you want, you can go to the documentation. Documentation is the best friend to you. So go to the documentation and see all the available commands there. Okay. So we are done with CLI, and now we will discuss about AWS Cloud Shell. So what is AWS Cloud Shell? AWS Cloud Shell is an alternative to AWS CLI, and in the console, right, if you open the console on the top right, here you can see a terminal command. So this command, if I click on this command, it will open a CLI command prompt in the UI itself. In your user interface itself, you can see an command line terminal like this. So you got a terminal here itself, and no need to set up access keys here because automatically it will use the logged in user access keys or credentials, so that you don't need to specially set up any credentials. It will use the same privileges which is having this user. So that is one advantage of using Cloud Shell. But if you want to use CLI, you have to set up those by using that AWS configure option or command. But yeah, this is also a better alternative, right? And here you can execute that AWS command line. Here also you can execute those CLI commands. So I will show you. First, if I type AWS IAM list users, you can see now you are going to get the same output what you got in CLI. So this is another way of accessing the AWS resources. This is CLI only, but this CLI opened through AWS console. So that's the difference. So that's why it's called it as Cloud Shell. Your shell script or your command line you're opening in cloud, not in your local machine. That's the advantage. And one more advantage of using Cloud Shell is this is also provide storage for you. So if I say ls, right, it is showing what are the like files available for us. So if I say echo Aditya to a file called test.txt, and if I click on enter, a file got aditya.txt got created. And if I say ls, you can see aditya got, sorry, test.txt is there. And if I say cat test.txt, it will show the file information, that is aditya, that is what we are storing in test.txt, right? And if I do a refresh, right, so you can do a restart also. If I do a restart of this Cloud Shell, right, you are doing a restart. That means you may wonder, if I restart my file would be gone, right? But AWS Cloud Shell also providing you 10 GB, I think up to 10 GB of data you can store there. You can store your automation files. You can write files and you can store files here. That is also possible. So that is why I'm showing here. And if I say ls, you can see test.txt got still there. And also you will have multiple options here. So here you will have upload file, download file also. For example, you written your automation script in your local machine, and if you want to upload here, you can do that. And if you want to download something from the Cloud Shell, you can do that. So see, I can do. So if I'm able to find the path of this txt, okay, this is the path, and I'm going to actions, download a file. You have to give that path and file name, and if I click on download, it will download the actual file from the Cloud Shell. So what it is doing, it is actually downloading a file for me. Look, text.txt got downloaded. Similarly, you can upload a file. You can execute those automations in that file. Okay, so this is how you can use AWS Cloud Shell. You can store files in the AWS Cloud Shell. You don't need to configure credentials for the AWS Cloud Shell because it will use the existing user credentials. Okay, so that is the advantage of using Cloud Shell. So both way, whatever way is comfortable to you, you choose that way. And if you use a traditional command line CLI, then you have to configure access keys. So to configure access keys, you have to go to AWS root user and create access keys for that user and store those access key in the CLI, like this what we have did earlier, and execute the AWS CLI commands. Yeah, that's it. I hope you understand about AWS CLI, how to access AWS resources using AWS CLI, and how it is beneficial than using the AWS console, right? And also AWS Cloud Shell also. So thanks for watching my videos. If you find this video helpful, hit a thumbs up and share it to your friends or colleagues. And thanks for watching my video.